Well, the New Zealand Jewish Council says they are sickened and shocked by the Bondi beach terror attack, but not completely surprised. The mass shooting has left countries across the globe ramping up security near Jewish communities, particularly during Hanukkah celebrations. Juliet Moses from the New Zealand Jewish Council joins us now. Juliet, first of all, my deep condolences to you and all Jewish communities. What impact has this had on communities here in New Zealand?
The immediate impact is that we were shocked, of course, and sickened by the attack, but not completely surprised. But we've had now 24 hours, I guess, to process it, or a bit over 24 hours. So now we start thinking about the longer term impacts.
And were members of the New Zealand Jewish community caught up in the tragedy?
Not directly. I do know of some who were close by and heard the shooting and had to run.
And how would you describe the New Zealand government's response since this unspeakable tragedy unfolded?
It's been exemplary. We have had amazing support. I've had calls from the Prime Minister, Minister Mitchell, who's the Minister for Police and Ethnic Communities, of course. Last night we held a service, a small Hanukkah lighting service within our community centre in Auckland, where we also, it was also doubled as a memorial vigil service, and the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister Mitchell all attended. We've had amazing support from the police, so that very night I was on a Teams call with a very senior police officer who was going through what their response would be, and we now have armed police at most of our community centres.
So just in terms of those festivities, are any of those being shut down or put on hold in light of what's happened, or are you continuing as usual with backup from police and other security?
We are continuing as usual with backup at this stage. Obviously we take that under advisement from police and security agencies, but it is really important to us that as much as possible we continue on as normal, because of course that's what terrorists want, don't they? They want to strike terror into the hearts of people. They want them to change their activities. They want, in this case, Jewish people not to be part of public life, either by not doing what they normally do or, in fact, by being completely erased.
Okay, now the Department of Internal Affairs has told me that they've seen a rise in anti-Jewish rhetoric online since the Israel-Hamas conflict. And the New Zealand SIS is obviously liaising with its Australian security partners, speaking with them about what's happening, assessing the threat here in New Zealand. Are there concerns that what's unfolded in Bondi could be replicated in New Zealand?
There are concerns. Of course, there are always concerns that a terrorist incident could happen here. There is certainly, there has been a very sharp escalation in anti-Semitic activities in New Zealand, not just sort of online rhetoric, since October 7, 2023.
What are you hearing specifically in relation to that? What feedback are you getting on that?
Well, there are no specific threats that I'm aware of, but certainly, you know, the agencies are just, they're very vigilant. So I don't think that they have any specific evidence that there's going to be, for example, a copycat attack, but they're aware, of course, that that is a likelihood. So they're just being extra careful.
What about people within the New Zealand Jewish community, though? What are they telling you about, you know, the rhetoric or the comments that they're hearing just, you know, on day to day?
Sure. Well, there's all sorts of things. I mean, there's the rhetoric we hear at the protests, you know, the anti-Israel protests, and of course it's fine to protest against Israel, absolutely no problem, but some of the rhetoric against it, as we have you know, talked about before in the media, the Jewish Council has tried to raise concerns with things like the From the River to the Sea chant, the Globalise the Intifada chant, which is exactly what we saw in Sydney. That's exactly what Globalise the Intifada looks like. But there's all sorts of things. There's threats, you know, quite threats of violence, but there's hate mail. I've received hate mail myself. There's been a lot more than just rhetoric, but certainly there is a permissive climate, I would say, in which violence is justified against Jews, and not only justified, sometimes almost portrayed as a kind of a righteous duty, that it's a good thing to commit violence against Jewish people.
These hateful emails you've received personally, I mean, how many of those have you received?
Oh, well, actually, this is actual mail, physical mail that's
sent
come
to your
me.
home?
Sent to other places, my place of work, for example, but there's been a whole series to a range of prominent people, and actually not necessarily so prominent people in the Jewish community, that's gone to places of work and other addresses.
And how would you describe the content of that material you've received?
Well, it's just hateful anti-Semitism, I would say generally. It varies in tone, but there's all sorts of things. We have people, for example, artists who are told that they can't exhibit their art or play their music unless they make a political statement denouncing Israel. Things like that. So there's, that's not threatening violence, but it's all about sort of forcing Jewish people into a kind of a double standard where they have to, justify their existence or make statements on the actions of a foreign government before they're kind of allowed to go about their normal life.
And are police and SIS, are the security agencies in New Zealand, are they regularly in contact with you? Obviously they've touched base following the events in Bondi Beach, but are they regularly kind of getting in touch, briefing you on certain things, saying, hey, look, maybe we should not have outdoor festivities or gatherings in large numbers?
We do have a good relationship with them. It's become even stronger since October 7, 2023, the Hamas-led attack on Israel. So there is quite regular communication. And I should note that actually we did used to have Hanukkah celebrations in parks and in public places, like the one we saw in Bondi, but we haven't done that for the last few years. So now ours are all within, walls, basically.
What more would you like to see done to try and deter and stop this type of violence or the creation of it, the planning of it?
I think, security obviously is really important, security funding and having security arrangements in place and the kind of relationships that we've talked about. But in a sense, that is, of course, the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. And ideally, we want to be in a society where that security is not necessary in the first place. And obviously there are a lot of deep issues there, but I think a lot of it comes down to education about digital literacy, because we have seen social media awash with anti-Semitism and the kind of rhetoric that we've been talking about from all different quarters. So there's really a lot of very deep societal issues, I think, that need to be addressed somehow.
Is that part of the core problem here, these hate-filled groups online that operate in secrecy? We know the Department of Internal Affairs, according to information they sent me overnight, has referred 18 URLs to agencies that contained, anti-Jewish sentiment. That was in the past year. So it is on the increase. Absolutely.
I think that is a big part of it. I don't want to say it's the whole part of it because, of course, anti-Semitism has been around for 2,000 years, well before there was social media. So this is just, I guess, part of the latest manifestation of it. But certainly it does not help.
What exactly are we seeing at these sites where the celebrations are taking place? I mean, are these armed police? Have you got extra security? Is the Jewish Council assisting with funding of that, or is the government providing that resource itself?
There were armed, for example, at the service I mentioned last night, there were armed police outside very visibly. There was a visible police presence, so anyone driving past would have seen it. And I think that's a really important sort of deterrent effect. The government has assisted with security funding for us. And I believe the Prime Minister said yesterday that he would ensure that there was, it was available for us for what we need.
Okay, Juliet Moses, we really appreciate your time coming into Herald Now and speaking to us. Again, our condolences for what's taken place, and we're all thinking of you and Jewish communities around the world currently. Thanks so much for your time.